Hello, I'm Dr. Alan Pollock, president of the Santa Clarita Valley Historical Society.
And I'm E.J. Stevens. In this special SCV Historical Society and SCV TV presentation, we sit down with one of the first California Highway Patrol officers to arrive at the scene of horrifying and tragic events that are now dubbed the Newhall Incident.
Just before midnight on April 5th, 1970, four young CHP officers, Roger Gore, Walt Frago, James Skip Pence, and George Alleyn, were gunned down by two ex-convicts outside of the Standard Oil station next to Jay's Diner.
This is where the Hilton Garden Inn, Valencia Six Flags, and some other stops are now located at Magic Mountain Parkway and the Old Road.
It was the worst massacre of peace officers in the history of the California Highway Patrol. It changed police procedures forever after, leading to improved police training on how to approach a suspect with better weaponry and bulletproof vests, saving the lives of many police officers in the line of duty.
Officer Erwin Holmes and his partner, Officer Robbie Robinson, were the next officers on scene, and they witnessed the massacre. We interviewed Mr. Holmes in August of 2021 at the very spot where the incident took place.
We're very appreciative to the Hilton Garden Inn, Valencia Six Flags, for allowing us to film on their property. You will notice that we're sitting 6 feet apart outdoors in their courtyard, as it was extremely important to us to film this interview and oral history of this historic event while taking every precaution possible during the COVID-19 pandemic.
We hope that this interview provides viewers with firsthand information about an event that changed our community and much of the world forever.
And now, here's our interview with Officer Erwin Holmes. First, I'd like to talk about you a little bit. You told me you were born in Bakersfield.
Yes.
And you moved around in the Central Valley, Stockton, and a few other places with your parents.
Yes.
And what made you decide to become a police officer? What led you to that?
Just one day I decided to be a police officer in Cloverdale. And just went from there.
Okay. And you did you start off in the California Highway Patrol, or were you elsewhere?
I started out in Cloverdale Police Department in 1962 and applied for the job. Here's the badge, go to work, don't get in trouble. That was it. No schooling.
Okay. Were you in the military at all, or just?
National Guard.
National Guard, okay. And when did you did you live in Newhall at the time?
No, I lived in Hillsburg.
Okay.
And I got married, we lived in Cloverdale.
Okay.
My dad and I had a truck stop there in Cloverdale.
So what year was it you went to Newhall?
1965.
65. And what was Newhall like back then?
It was a farmland. You can run down 99 and look across and see the trains go through Newhall. Saugus Speedway was there and still there, I understand.
At least the side of it, yeah.
Yeah, I used to work there on swap meet days. Yeah, flea market days. And there's just a nice big open area. My class replaced over half of the office in Newhall. The first office was the east side of the freeway, south of Lyons Avenue, behind the Golden State Hospital.
Okay.
A little building down there by a trailer park. We was there a couple of months and they built a new one across the street on the hill below, turned out to be Hoag's house. And off of Lyons Avenue on the frontage road was there. And that's where we patrolled from.
How many people were in the Newhall Police Department back then, or CHP, I guess?
I think there was 170 people who worked out of the office.
Okay.
Scales, civilians, and officers.
And you patrolled the whole North County? Is that what?
Our area at that time was the freeways in Burbank and Glendale, city limits.
Okay.
And on Golden State and Ventura Freeway. So daytime and evening shift, we had 2 units down there. Daytime, evening shift with 2 one-man units. Graveyard, they had a 2-man unit. Then the rest of the patrol areas from San Fernando Valley north to Kern County line.
Wow.
Ventura County line on the 126, and east almost to Palmdale,
Okay.
and everything in between.
Big area.
Big area.
Yeah.
So sometime during your stay as a police officer here in Newhall, there were 4 rookie cops that joined the force. Their names were Roger Gore, Walter Frago, James Pence, and George Alleyn. Do you recall when you met them?
I really don't.
Yeah.
I think Alan came out of North Hollywood. He transferred out from the valley up to here. Pence, Gore, and Frago came from the academy. So Alan had a little bit more time on the job than the other 3. But Roger, I was his training officer when he came in. Actually, I wasn't even off my break-in period 30 days, and I became a training officer for the next 3-4 years. We had about 4 or 5 guys dead in the office. And at that time, you had the new officer for 30 days. And I suggested to Captain McDaniels that, why don't we break it up and have a training officer for 10 days with each officer. That we got a better overall view of the officers, what he can do and can't do. Because there's things I specialized in that other officers didn't. So that's what we did. And it worked out real good. And Roger, on those days off, would come out and ride with me. And we had a lot of fun. And I found out after he passed that he would come home and tell his wife what I did that day, not what he did. And that really hit a nerve. And after his passed, the incident, his wife gave me his rain clothes. And I wore them in Sonora till they were not able to wear them anymore.
So you trained 2 of the guys, you said?
I think I trained 2 of them, yes. I think Officer Ullman did Officer Allen. I just read that someplace a couple, 3 months ago. But they were great guys.
What do you remember about them? What kind of interest did they have? What
Well,
kind of personality?
We never got personal. We never been to each other's houses. That just didn't go on in those days. But they were not badge heavy. They wanted to do a job and they enjoyed their job. And it was a pleasure to work with them. And like I say, I often wondered how far they would have gone in the company if they would have stayed alive. I think they would have been higher echelon.
So you had been on the force or here in Newhall for 5 years then?
Roughly 5 years.
When the incident happened?
Yes.
What would be a normal day? I mean, I'm sure that you weren't drawing weapons on a normal day, right?
No. So, in all my years of law enforcement, I think I had my weapon out once in Cloverdale, a couple of times in Sebastopol. And that night was the first time I ever fired it on duty.
So, but you spent most of your time patrolling? Is that what would happen?
Then, those days we patrolled. And didn't have say for example, we made a stop and we can't run across drugs and stuff. We'd freeze everything and call the sheriff and they took it on from there. Nowadays, CHP does the whole shebang. And just writing tickets basically all day and helping stranded motorists and people like that.
Who was your partner in your car?
On April 5th, my partner that time was Robbie Robinson.
Yeah. How long had you been driving with him?
A couple of years, I'd say. We patrolled together quite a bit.
Yeah.
And,
What was he like?
pardon?
What was he like?
Great guy. Just a good old boy. One night we was up Gorman, got this guy, couple guys for speeding in one car. We had an Oldsmobile then, and the speedometer ran off the left front wheel. the driver of the car was checking my rear tire depth and stuff for the speedometer reading, so he'd go to, I'm assuming, go to court. And he gave us a bad time, gave Robbie a bad time while he was writing the ticket. So he kicked them loose and they went south, and I caught the U-turn through the center divider and went back north and made another one. We got him again down here in Newhall for speed, close to the office. And I wrote the ticket this time. The guy was very polite. He didn't even recognize Robbie standing there as the one that wrote him the ticket 20 minutes before. So it was one of those funny things that I also informed him then that the speedometer ran off the left front tire in the car and not the rear when he did the inspection up by Gorman. So one of those fun things.
There were a couple of other officers, Harry Ingold and Roger Palmer, that were working during your time as an officer. When did you meet them? What do you remember about them?
Well, they were, we were the R shift that night from 7 till 3 in the morning for that month. And I've worked with them occasionally, but like I say, we paired up, we do our job, and just have fun doing it. It was an enjoyable job. And again, we didn't, if we had a party, we went and had a party, but you know, Christmas, Thanksgiving, that's about it. So we never really got close.
So what do you remember about that day in particular? I mean, what were you doing beforehand? And
Robbie and I were patrolling in the area of Saugus, got a Bouquet Canyon Road. Can't remember the road going out to Highway 14. Is that Solid?
Sierra Highway?
Huh?
Sierra, maybe?
I don't remember a Sierra. We're just free to go in where we basically wanted to go. And Harry and Roger were in the other RE unit, and same thing. We just kind of floated around and covered the shifts when shift change went, so they had somebody out there to cover. And if it was close to shift change, then we'd take care of the situation. So I was basically on Newhall Avenue, San Fernando Road. The road went out to Bouquet Canyon, and the road went past the Saugus Speedway. And we were just patrolling there, and they got the call of a brandishing of a weapon, description of the car. Roger and Walter were on north side of this area patrolling, and Pence and Allen were the south end of 99 or Interstate 5 now. And they got, Roger and them got behind the car north of Castaic someplace. And they were falling down. They're going to make the stop at Valencia off-ramp area after that's where the other car was waiting for them to meet up for a 2-car stop. But the suspect turned off here at Henry Mayo Drive, which now is Magic Mountain Park.
Magic Mountain. Mm-hmm.
And turned into the gas station. So Roger let everybody know that he turned off. And in the meantime, when the original call came out, there was only one person in the car. And between nighttime and actual stop, he picked up his partner someplace north of Castaic.
Oh, so when they first called it in, there was only one person in the car?
One person.
And then he picked up the other guy. So when you heard the call, you were told there was only one person in the car?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. What time would this have been, roughly?
After 23, 30 hours. It was on April 5th.
Okay.
Almost midnight.
Almost midnight, okay.
So when you got the call, the first guy in the car, I believe, was Bobby Augusta Davis.
Yeah, it would be Davis.
And he
That we found out later.
He and Jack Twinning were the two ex-convicts involved in the Newhall incident.
Yes.
And they were up near Gorman.
South of Gorman.
Yeah, what were they doing up there?
They had 2 radios. They were working on them, I understand, to see if they worked. the contacts, and so they could contact each other when they were going to do the robberies that we found out later.
So they were planning a big heist, right?
Yeah, here in L.A. City.
In L.A. Okay.
Afterwards, they found out they had information on banks, managers, their houses, families.
Really?
So it was going to be a big thing.
So what led to them getting followed by the CHP officer?
Apparently, the Davis made a U-turn up around Pyramid Rock someplace
Okay.
and cut off a car going southbound.
Okay.
And apparently the driver of the southbound car's citizen, they had a few words, and Davis apparently pulled out a gun and pointed it at him.
Okay.
And that's all we had.
So he pulled a gun on the driver.
Southbound citizen driver, him and his wife.
And then the driver, I would imagine,
They
'cause
got
back
to
then
a-
you couldn't use cell phones. I mean, it probably had to pull off and call someone, right?
Yeah, he called from a payphone
I see.
and let the office know about it. Our dispatch center was at Newhall.
Okay, so that's why they were first followed by the police.
Yeah, the citizen gave the description of the car and the license plate.
I see. Okay. And so they drove south from Pyramid Lake all the way to what's
Oh.
now Magic Mountain, right?
Yeah, well, it was Pyramid Rock then.
Pyramid Rock. There wasn't a lake there at the
Yeah.
time, right? Right.
99 ran through Pyramid.
Yeah, that's
Lake.
right. The road was still there. Okay.
It looks like it. I want
Yeah.
to drive over there one of these days and look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a barrier now where you can't drive in the lake, but yeah.
But I can still see the 3-mile grade, I think.
So now who was following the suspects at this time?
Gore and Frago were following the suspects.
Okay.
They identified them, and so when they got down toward the scales, Robbie and I were over at San Fernando Road, and I started headed this way on the San Fernando Road
Okay.
toward 99, and then one of them radioed to Alleyn and Pence that the suspects were turning off at Henry Mayo Drive, and they were sitting at Valencia on-ramp, off-ramp.
While they were speaking to each other, were you hearing this on the radio?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What were you thinking at the time?
Well, I'm better head over there. And they might have a problem. My first instinct, I have an instinct about things, and over the years, it has paid off.
And where were you when you got the call? Where were you at?
Robbie and I were on Old San Fernando Road around the Bouquet Canyon Road.
Okay.
Newhall Avenue.
Okay.
So I started heading this way. And just about the time I got to, just before Edison Curve, Alleyn and Pence radioed, "Never mind, we're here now." They made a U-turn, came back north, and came off at Henry Mayo northbound and got behind the patrol where the stop was. So Robbie and I looked out, another one of those calls, so we made a U-turn and went back toward Newhall. I didn't get about a mile, and the call came out 11:99. So I copped another U-turn, and I headed to Jay's coffee shop. The curve at Edison substation at that time was a 35-mile-an-hour curve. Speed limit at that time was 65 miles an hour max speed limit. And Robbie said I went around that curve over 130 miles an hour.
Is that right?
What did 1199 mean?
Officer down.
Yeah.
Officer down.
So that was your first inkling that something bad was going on.
It was bad.
Yeah.
When that comes out, it's bad.
Had you ever had to deal with one of those calls before?
Never.
Never.
And like Robbie said, I went around that curve that fast, and I said, man, I even stayed in my own lane and did it. So I pulled into the backside of Jay's coffee shop, a lot of people there. And I remember apparently a cook in a white uniform, they kept pointing around the corner. So I backed out, went around the curve, and stopped short of the driveway to the gas station. The 2 patrol cars were there. And as I pulled in, I told Robbie to get the shotgun. I saw Officer Pence get shot in the back of the head with, found out later, suspect Twining. Then Twining walked across the front of the patrol cars and fired at my patrol car as my partner was getting out the door with a shotgun. And at the same time, Citizen Ness was running behind the patrol cars in front of me down into the large drainage ditch going past my right side. I came in with my headlights off. At the same time, my scale cars were coming southbound to the scene. Car to car, I tried to get them to stay on the freeway so they could look down on top of the gas station, but nobody heard it because of all the noise. And then Davis was getting into the car. Twining was on the right side of the car, tried to get in after he fired around at me, at my car. And anytime I made a stop, my driver's door was always open before I stopped. And I was able to pull my weapon out, and I fired 2 rounds at the suspect vehicle in front of the windshield, but on the inside part of the left front door. And I feel I hit the rear window of their car, suspect's car, and blew the rest of it out as they were getting in and driving off.
So when you pulled in, was the suspect's car facing you, or was it
just short of pulling into the islands at the gas station? Patrol cars were here. Suspect car was up there.
Oh, so you were all pointing the same way?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why you say you took out the back window.
It was already partially out.
Okay.
And I think I blew the rest of it out.
Okay.
And like I say, didn't aim, just.
Yeah. So at this time, you said you saw the one officer get shot.
Yes.
Was he the first one to get shot, or was there?
Well, as I pulled in, I also found out later it was Officer Alleyn behind the first patrol car that was there first.
Okay.
And that's where Citizen Ness ran from that area there back toward me.
When he saw Officer Pence was down, the witness Ness abandoned further attempts to help the officers and ran to a ditch situated along the edge of the road. As Unit 7816R, Officer Holmes and Robinson arrived at the scene. The witness Ness ran up to their unit. Officer Holmes and Robinson stopped just south of the 2 patrol units, parked in the entrance to the standard station at Jay's Restaurant. Time, 23:59, 4.5 minutes. From the time of the stop by Officers Gore and Frago until Officers Holmes and Robinson's arrival at the scene, 4.5 minutes. As they came to a stop, they observed one suspect, Davis, moving toward the Pontiac. Officer Holmes fired 2 rounds with his service revolver. The first at the suspect and the second at the vehicle as it accelerated away. Officer Robinson exited the unit just as the suspect Twining fired at him, the bullet striking the now open right front door. Officer Holmes informed Newhall Radio of 3 officers shot. 2 are 1144 and 1 seriously wounded, requested an 1141. He further reported that the suspect vehicle last seen southbound on Old Road. At this time, the 4th officer had not yet been observed. Officers Holmes and Robinson split up when the suspect vehicle accelerated away. Officer Holmes approached the patrol cars and checked the officers for signs of life. It was at this time that he observed the fourth officer down, Officer Gore, and determined that Officer Alleyn was the only one still alive.
When you first saw citizen Gary Kness, what were you thinking? What was this guy
I
doing?
don't know. I said, he's not the, I just, no, he wasn't the guy.
You knew he wasn't one of the suspects.
Yeah. He did have a gun in his hand.
Yeah.
He had one of the officer's weapons.
Okay.
But, I didn't feel a threat there. Just, like I say, my instincts.
Your instincts took over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because he could have very easily been shot by one of.
We had him in our sights,
He's now considered like the citizen hero of the Newhall incident. What did you see him do, or what do we know that he did there?
Well, I know he stopped to help the officers, tried to got their weapons, did some firing. After reading, I read about it later, and sorry he didn't save any lives, but at least he manned up and did something.
Right.
Very admirable.
Right.
And to this date, even after he passed, I've never met him.
Great
I've
guy.
seen him, but I've never talked to him.
Yeah, we had a great experience of getting to meet him. He was just a really amazing guy. Very humble.
That's what I heard. So,
Yeah.
So after Robbie got out and went through the ditch and went over the fence, at the same time, Officer Ingold and Palmer pulled in behind me. And that's why we got fired on, because they came with their headlights on. So our vehicle was illuminated.
Now, by the time you had come on the scene, Frago and Gore were already down.
They were down.
How did that transpire? What was the?
As far as I can figure out, they were down before the backup showed up.
Yeah.
So the backup unit, Pence and Alleyn drove into an ambush.
I see. So the first car was there.
The second car
drove into the ambush, like you said, and you were the third car.
Third car.
And then there was the fourth car.
That back.
How far apart would you say everybody was? I mean, roughly. I mean, when they were shooting at you, how far away were they?
Maybe 50, 75 feet.
Okay. So a little bit of distance. Yeah.
And I always wondered what would happen if I would have kept going the first time.
If you hadn't
Made my
heard
U-turn, because every weekend we had brandishing the weapon calls. The weekend before, Officer Pence and I handled 2 or 3 in the same area, and all turned out to be fruits. And I've even made stops by myself, checking out a brandishing of the weapon. So there's just a common thing in the Newhall area because of the open land and people come up target shooting.
But still, with all these stops, you never had to draw your own weapon or
Never did.
never got in danger. That's great. You have the suspect's car and the 4 police cars. How long did this all take? I mean, how long are we talking about?
According to what I read, it took 4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes, the whole thing from start to finish.
The whole thing for the 4 officers to be taken out.
Okay.
They had semi-automatic handguns, shotguns. We had 6 shooters, and we were outgunned.
I was going to say you were at a disadvantage right there.
And those other people had a purpose. And our training in those days were really not to be aggressive. So.
Well, was your training with the Highway Patrol? Were you even supposed to be dealing with shootouts as opposed to, speeding motorists and that sort of thing? Yeah.
We didn't have that. Just never thought. People never thought of it.
Had there been very many instances of CHP having to deal with this type of thing in their history?
They probably have. I don't never really checked into it.
So it wasn't. It just wasn't part of what you considered the job would normally be.
On your first part of your mind, you always had a consideration for the citizen, and you're doing your public duty to help them. And this one turned out to be bad.
Yeah. So the suspects got away at the time.
Well, they drove to the back corner lot No. It was the first part of San Fernando Road that deaded into the freeway. The freeway went through it.
Now, when you say the freeway, that was the 99 then,
Highway
right?
99.
The 5 came later.
It's kind of both then,
Okay.
but it was more 5 now.
Okay.
And they drove to the corner where the bridge went over on the freeway of Santa Cruz Valley River Dry Wash, whatever they call it. And they went down into the dry wash. Okay. Over the guard. I think there was a guardrail there.
That would be close to where Magic Mountain is now, is that right?
It'd be on the east side of the old 99 going toward Newhall, Saugus area.
Okay.
And apparently one went east in the dry wash, and turned out 20 went west in the dry wash. On foot.
Okay.
With weapons. 20 even took a CHP shotgun.
Oh, is that right? So their car was left back.
They left at
Here.
the scene. All they had to do was make a left turn out of the driveway, and they could have gone up old 99. They would have been gone.
Mm,
But they drove into the embankment of the freeway.
okay. So they got back in the car. He drove into the embankment. Then they headed off
Yeah.
on foot.
Probably went 150 feet, 200 feet.
Oh, okay. Okay. So nearby.
Short.
Yeah.
I got to think about, why did he make a left turn? Head north on the old 99.
Mm-hmm.
You had
could've-
mentioned to me that the books that were written about this incident got a few facts wrong.
Quite a few.
Quite a
Can
few.
you give us some examples of what?
Well, there's been 3 books written on it. Not one of the authors ever talked to me. And 2012, an officer, Tim Scott in Sonora, gave me one of the books. They had a lot of short articles about law enforcement incidents, so I read about it. And those people had me standing out the right side of the patrol car shooting at the suspects. Well, I'm still sitting behind the steering wheel.
Oh, you were on the left side behind. Yeah.
And
Okay.
they
And you
had
were
me-
firing, like you said, around the window.
Yeah, and they had me on the outside of the car by the right door. Then the second one came out. The CHP officer, Chief Anderson, wrote the book. I just read it again here last month, looked at it. It's written for a movie script. There's no way, in my opinion, that he knows what Roger and Walter talked about to and from the academy when they were going to the academy. And other things, it was written by somebody who helped them, I guess. And just didn't make, written for a movie. And then in the back part of the book, they have a chapter 51, I think it was, where Robbie and I were involved. And Robbie called me Ed, so I know he probably talked to him about it. So that's in the book. And they had it down where Robbie heard me fire, but also then when they had Robbie checking the bodies, which he did because he was in the parking lot going after the Pontiac, I checked the bodies. And then they had me supposedly sit in the patrol car in shock. I don't remember any of that. I was doing my job. And Robbie asked me to go get the first aid kit out of the car so he can help Officer Alleyn. That didn't happen.
Who was he talking to that got the wrong information?
This Chief Anderson was out of Fresno CHP headquarters, I understand. Never met him. And like I say, none of them ever talked to me or asked me what went on. And like I say, they had some author reading the book that was assisting him in writing the story.
I see.
And it is a story.
Okay.
And I got, my first time looking at it, I said, that's a movie script.
One thing I wanted to ask you, how many people were roughly at this time? I mean, it wasn't just you and the police and the
Well, the people in
suspects.
the restaurant were all around the back door the south side of the restaurant and inside. Fortunately, no bullets went flying that way.
Was the restaurant fairly full, or?
I'm assuming so.
Okay.
It was Sunday night. It's a trucker stop. It was a
Okay.
great
Well, this was
place.
a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunday night, Monday morning. Cars parked in back, people in their vehicle. And one guy, I think, was working on his clearance lights.
Were there people at the gas station, like in the
Nobody
islands?
in the gas station.
Okay, so just the.
That was open.
Okay. Okay.
And we had everything. Had the freeway embankment for us, so we wouldn't have nothing going up the freeway weapons-wise, bullet-wise. But as Robbie got out and everything settled down and they drove to the corner, I went and checked the bodies. I started out with Alleyn. He was laying behind Gore's, the first car there, shot up pretty bad. Got a little pulse. Then I went between the cars and checked Roger and Walter. They were gone. Then I worked my way back to the left rear of Pence's car and checked him. And he was in a sitting, crouching position on his knees when he got shot. And apparently he was reloading his weapon. It's 6-shooter, one bullet at a time. Well, then I reached in his patrol car on the driver's side, had to go underneath the steering wheel to reach to get the microphone. Then I pulled it back out, and as I backed out, I hit the red spotlight handle and turned the red spotlight down with my left shoulder. Then I called dispatch and let them know what took place. And then I left the microphone hanging on the driver's seat, hanging out to the outside edge. Then Robbie and I got back together, and I told the sergeant, I want to check the freeway. I had a feeling one of them went that way. He told me no, I couldn't do that. Well, did it anyway. And I said, at that time, Valencia Road dead end at the freeway fence line. Lyons Avenue, Pico went west, and it dead end about 500 feet in from the off ramp. So a couple of times, Robbie went in, we backed in and turned around and sat and watched out, looking out toward to see if we see anything run across the road. Never did. In the meantime, the LASO stopped somebody on 405, but 2 guys with a bunch of guns. So they picked me up, drove me to the North Hollywood office, wherever that is, to identify them. And that was a waste of time because it wasn't them.
Could you have identified him? I mean, did you get a good look at him at the time?
I could, by the clothing. And at the time, I didn't know who was which. One of them had a yellow jacket on or something yellow shirt on. But I saw those guys, and who knows, he drove me back in time to be at the bottom of the hill below the Hoag's house where Twining took him hostage. And I was there when that situation ended. And later that day, I told the sergeant I was right when I went where I wanted. I let him know I had my instinct was right. So I was in the office. I was kind of a stirrer up and stuff. So right's right, wrong's wrong.
So let's see here. Was it Davis that took off and he was apprehended, right? And then it was
Yeah, out in
Twining,
San Francisco Canyon Road.
San Francisco Canyon. Once again on foot. He made
He
it all
was
the way
on
over
foot,
there.
and he commandeered some guy in a camper shell out there, pickup with a camper shell on it. I understand he pistol whipped him, and he sold his vehicle and he drove it out. Then 2 deputies, LASO, stopped him out there and took him in custody. I understand that there are some witnesses out there. Davis would not have been taken into custody. He would have been taken care of, from what I heard. So,
And so he went north, and then Twining went.
no, he went east.
He went
East north.
east. Yes. Okay.
East north. Wherever the canyon. Been a
Okay.
long time since I even
Yeah,
encountered
yeah.
myself.
Okay. And Twining went south then.
He went across west in the riverbank, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
apparently went underneath the bridge on Old 99,
Okay.
or he went over the top of Old 99 and got on the west side of the freeway fence line.
What was there then? Was there like a road or anything at the time?
That was Old 99.
That okay, Old 99, but then on
Ended
this-
right at Jay's Coffee Shop,
Old 99 ended right where basically where we are now.
where Magic Mountain Parkway is.
Yeah.
now.
Okay. And
And he apparently followed the fence line down over the
Okay.
hills, through the gullies. It was really, hilly property out there.
yeah, we call that the old road now. That
Yeah.
was 99.
But at that time, the old road ended at Jay's Coffee Shop.
The old road ended there. Okay.
They made a left turn onto the freeway or go onto San Fernando Road.
Okay. So he made it. That's a couple miles. He made it down there
A few miles, yeah.
on foot.
Apparently he went in front of or behind, I think Denny's Cafe was down there then.
And while he's doing that, you're down in North Hollywood.
Part of the time, yeah. Did some patrolling, then they common.
And so he ends up here where around where we have Lions or Pico Canyon now, and he commandeers the home of
Oh,
Stephen and Betty Hoag.
Hoag,
Yeah.
however you pronounce it.
However, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And that house was about 1,000 feet plus northwest of the CHP office at that time. Okay. There was nothing there except our office and that house.
Oh, that was the only house?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then we had Pico Street. We had a gas station and a restaurant.
The Denny's was there at that time, you
Yeah.
said? Okay. Okay.
how did you first hear about him taking over that house?
Well, when I got back from the trip to LA or North Hollywood, I've never seen so many patrol cars in my life, on and off ramps, both sides of Lyons Avenue, the frontage roads. I mean, we had people from South LA, officers from Ventura, and I've ran into some few years ago that came further than South LA. A couple of guys, I've talked to them. And that's where I first knew about the hostage situation when they brought me back and let me off on the frontage road.
I think I'm going to have to see a map because it's so different now that some of this is a
I
little
have some-
confusing in my mind. But
Newspaper aerial shots in my book,
oh, do
scrapbook
you? Okay. Okay.
of how the area was.
Because we are pretty much right now at the site of where the incident
This
happened.
building here would be about where the north end of Jay's Coffee Shop would be.
Okay. And the gas station was
North of that,
north of that, so it'd be just a little bit.
the back parking lot area,
Okay.
back end of the motel here.
Okay. At the time, it was Jay's Coffee Shop. It was a pretty popular place, correct?
Well, it's a truck stop for truckers.
Uh-huh.
Had parking galore even on the old highway. And they could walk, it was a divided expressway, what it was.
And it had been here a long time.
I came here, it was here when I showed up.
Okay.
It was here when I left.
Yeah.
Then I came back and it wasn't.
Yeah, for years we had a Marie Callender's here and some other things.
Yeah, it was,
Before Jay's, it was Tips.
That's right.
Magic Mountain was here because we used to go to that.
Mm.
They were building that.
That's right. That would have been a couple of years earlier. So Magic Mountain was here.
Take us through the Hoag incident. What happened there, and when did you arrive, and what did you?
Well, I arrived back from the North Hollywood office, so they drove me back. Got out down on the frontage road on the west side of the freeway. And everything was pointed up toward the Hoag's house.
What time would this have been, roughly?
It was daylight.
It was daylight. So
Like I say,
the next morning.
the next
okay.
morning, the April 6th. And I went down there in the dark and came back. It was getting daylight. So I heard the tear gas being shot in. People were around the house. And the sheriff's office went in. And I heard the gunshots. and 20 apparently committed suicide. But what I heard didn't sound the way the paper reported it.
Really?
The shots were a little different than what was reported. So,
What did you hear?
well, I think it was suicide by cop.
Okay. Okay.
Who knows?
I understand that before the shooting at the Hoag house, that Twining had been talking with the reporter.
And he talked to Davis.
And he talked to Davis.
Yeah, I understand they talked.
And he was expressing that he didn't want to go back to prison.
Yeah. He wasn't going to go back to prison.
What do you plan to do? Just want a few more minutes to live before I die, that's all. Why do you think you have to go that way? I've been in before, and I will go back again. I figured if I could make it over second, I can do it for me. Of course, if you're held in California, you know, there hasn't been an execution in California for a long time. Nobody killed 4 highway patrols in a long time either. Yeah, but if you had a good attorney, you know, they could put the thing off for several years, and there's a pretty good chance you could come out of it with your life. Well, I don't expect it.
Yeah, I read that after, everything was done.
So when you say suicide by cop, do you think he purposely
Well, who
got
knows?
shot?
Who knows?
Yeah.
They might have went in and, being human, took care of 4 officers. What would you do if you caught the guys? Yeah. And I also heard rumor if there wasn't so many witnesses around when they caught Davis, he wouldn't be here that night either, or that day. So that's what I heard.
So when you said that they talked to each other, how did they talk to? How did they?
Apparently, they had a phone system.
Oh, because they were. You said they were.
I think Davis. Something. I remember a hospital being involved when they were talking.
Okay.
So it might have been. They set it up where they could talk to each other, probably trying to get him to come out and surrender prior.
Okay, so this might have been after he was already in police custody.
Yeah.
And they was trying to talk Twining into coming out.
And I understand he talked to a reporter. I don't know. Somebody called him, I guess, from up north and got a hold of him. On the,
And the Hoag family was in the house at this time.
they were in the house with a husband and a wife, and I think their son. And was able to escape and get out. So then the sheriff officer went in.
And you said you heard the shots. And you said it was different than the report. What were?
Well, you can hear the shots between a pistol and a shotgun.
Okay.
And like I say, I don't really can tell you exactly which was which, but it didn't sound like it was reported in the paper.
And how was it reported?
That Twining committed suicide.
Oh, I see.
With a CHP shotgun.
I see. So it was reported that he killed himself with the CHP shotgun.
Yeah.
And you said you heard the shots sound a little different. What did you mean by that?
You hear things, and the sequence just sounded different to me.
What did the sequence?
Could have been a pistol shot first or a shotgun first. I don't know. Like I say, they went in with shotguns and their long guns. So, like I say, the impression I got that morning standing down at the hill listening to it was just, and then I read it in the paper. That doesn't sound the way I heard it. So that's what I came to an opinion of.
Okay. I'm sorry, just to clear up a little bit. Did you say you heard a pistol shot, then a shotgun shot?
Like I say, it could have been a long rifle shot. Because I don't know.
Okay.
But like I say, it didn't seem right to me when I read it in the paper.
I see. Okay.
I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
and we're going back a ways too. That's 50 years plus. Yeah.
That's the same impression I had back then.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
And it could have been another sound, or really can't put my finger on it, but it just didn't sound right.
Mm.
So
what did you do? Let's see, your shift was supposed to be over at 3, you said?
3 in the morning.
But now this is the next day. You're still there, obviously.
Yeah.
What? When did you go home? When did your shift end?
I think Robbie and I got released around noon.
Around noon.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is a long day.
long 2 days.
Long
How
2
did you
days,
feel-
right?
How did you feel at that point? What were you thinking?
I don't know. I was sharp. I really wasn't tired. And matter of fact, I got a picture in my scrapbook of myself, the LA detective, and the Commissioner Sullivan at that time standing by the suspect's car by the river. And I do not remember being there,
Really?
but that's me standing there. And that was later in the daylight.
How does that work? Did they have to come and interview you? I mean, the police department?
The other day I found my GE micro tape recorder,
Uh-huh.
and I got an interview on it, which I can't understand on that tape. I hope somebody has something a little bit louder so I can understand the words.
Yeah, maybe we can try to pull that off.
And
there,
I
yeah.
just found that the other day after 50 years.
Really?
Yeah,
That'd be very interesting to hear.
it was still in the machine.
Really? And so, I mean, they come and they debrief you and everybody else that was there?
I don't remember
Don't
anything
remember?
like that. I remember talking to somebody. I couldn't tell you who.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wrote a report that morning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember
So that sounds like you were quite affected by what happened.
affecting, but like I say, there's some things you don't remember. But I remember going home. You know, I found out about the situation on TV. Both my boys were at home. And I went to bed. They didn't really talk about it. And a few hours later, apparently we got a phone call from the office, and the R shift was put on the graveyard shift that night.
So you,
Went back to work at 10 o'clock.
at what time?
10 o'clock that night.
So you'd basically been on from 10 to noon.
Sunday was 7 till 3.
Oh, sorry, 7 to
Supposedly 3.
3
But
plus
didn't get-
all the way
didn't
to
get-
noon.
Noon.
And they put you right back on the 10 o'clock shift that night?
Yeah, graveyard shift, both R units.
So you didn't get any like time off or anything, or they didn't?
Not in those days. He sucked it up and went back to work.
Really? So, do you remember anything? I mean, were you with Robbie that night?
Yeah,
On
we're
shift?
back, Robin. I went into the office back to work at 2,200 hours. We had our briefing. We didn't really talk about the shooting.
Which is interesting to me because we had another event that happened in our history here in Santa Clarita, the St. Francis Dam disaster, and in interviews with the survivors or the families of survivors, they also mentioned that they didn't talk about it.
Was that
It-
more the culture, or you think, or
I have no
the
idea.
times?
Yeah.
Because when I went back to work that night, I went to get my car. The car I was driving the night before ran good, and there was a tag on the key ring that said, "Bullet hole in car, do not use."
Really?
So I know later I found out it was Twining who fired at us with his pistol, but I didn't hear anything hitting the car
Okay.
because the right door was open.
Was that where it got shot in the right door?
Right door between the H and the top part of the I between those two letters.
And you would have been in the left side.
I'm on the left side.
At the-
Robbie was getting out the right side.
So Robbie was probably behind the door when
That or just got out.
Just got out.
before he got out.
okay.
It was that close.
Okay.
And the only reason why I think we got shot at because the unit to back us up came with the headlights on and illuminated us. So, no, that was inexperience there. So Robbie got out. No, I went to get the car and we saw that. I went out and looked at it. That was the last time I looked at that car.
Really?
And May of this year, 2021, I contacted the LASO Homicide Division, talked to a officer in the Cold Case Division, and I asked him if he had any pictures of my patrol car of that day. And he says they probably did. He'll go look in the files, the cold case files. Eventually, he sent me 4 pictures of my patrol car when they analyzed it at the LASO, but they did it in the back parking lot of the old CHP office. And it shows my right door with a bullet hole in it that went in between the H and the I, and it came out about the door latch on the end of the door, not through the door.
Oh, it didn't come all the way through?
So apparently the door was
okay.
like this and went like that, but where did the bullet go?
Okay.
So I apparently didn't hit the car behind me, which is the fourth
Oh, so
unit.
it did go all the way through the door?
Went through the door.
Okay.
Because they stuck a stick in it and see
Really?
the angle of the fire.
Okay.
I got a couple pictures of that. Then they sent me another picture looking across from the driver's side to the right side spotlight, the back right corner of the hood, and there's pellet marks there from a shotgun.
Is that right?
So apparently Davis shot at us too that night.
Wow.
And I just found out about that.
You didn't even realize it at the
Didn't
time.
even know that.
So just this year.
That was just below it hit the top of the hood, just before the windshield and below the windshield wiper blade.
Wow.
And the windshield was cracked all the way up to the top. So I don't remember a windshield being cracked when I driving the rest of that night. Because the way the crack is, if you had a light on it, you would have seen it. So apparently it cracked later or after we parked it, or don't know. Or if they moved it.
I see.
But there's no damage to the right front fender except right on the top where it first started into the windshield. So between us and Davis that time, if I remember correctly, there was a wooden fence, so possibly part of those pellets or into the fence or someplace else.
Now you said earlier that you felt that your friends just drove into an ambush.
Yes.
And,
the other 2 officers had to be down.
yeah. So I know that there have been procedural changes after that. What was done different? What would be done differently, I guess, is what I'm saying now.
What are they doing now? I really don't know, because I never got any training on it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would ask, had you had this night to do over, is there anything that you feel that you wish you had done different yourself, or you wish that the 4 officers had done different?
Well, I wish first off I would have kept going. Then we would have had 6 officers there,
I
3
see.
cars.
Okay.
Like the other 2 officers, like I say, it was a common thing down there, brandishing a weapon on the freeway. So we took it seriously. So it's just one of those bad things that happened.
Those bad things. And these were 4 relatively new police officers, right?
Roger, Frago, Pence were the youngest ones of the 4. Allen probably been on 3-4 months longer.
So this wasn't for long-term experienced police officers.
No, they're fresh.
Yeah.
But still, they had the training that I had.
Sure.
And but I was fortunate to have 3 years of PD prior to that. So I've been in it since '62. They probably got in after, '68 or so, someplace in there.
So there was no, it just sounded like it was an era where there was no grief counseling, or there was no time off for just.
No.
So you just had to hit right back into work. Was that the way it was from then on? Was there ever any time?
No.
So the officers, you guys never really talked about it, or?
Nope, not even when I transferred in that office in Sonora. I got thinking about it here year or so ago that we never spoke about it. The 8 years I was there. Never brought up.
How do you feel that affected the rest of your life, the rest of your mental
I didn't
health?
realize it.
Yeah.
In 1977, doctor told me to change my lifestyle or not enjoy the retirement. So I quit December 21st at 14:05 hours.
And this was, had transferred by this time?
Yeah, I was in Sonora.
In Sonora, okay. How long after the incident did you transfer?
About 7 years.
I mean, I'm sorry, did you transfer?
Oh, I transferred. Yeah, I transferred November of 71.
Okay, so just over a year and a few months after the
Yeah,
incident.
the reason I wanted to transfer out because my kids are getting ready to go to junior high school in Saugus, and we had a drug problem then in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to school in Cass State. They went from kindergarten, actually first grade through sixth grade. And I told the wife when I came down here, I want to leave in 6 years because I didn't want them to go to school down here. And 71, we went on a vacation, drove through Sonora, saw the Sierra Railroad up there, the West Side Railroad. I'm a model railroader.
Okay.
And never did stop in the CHP office up there. Came back to Newhall and I asked one of the secretaries where would I be for transfer to Newhall or to Sonora from Newhall. She checked on it and she said, oh, you'll be number 2. So I went ahead and put my transfer in. 28 days later, I was sitting up there.
Is that right?
The officer who was wanting to transfer was number 1. He already lived in Sonora, but he worked out of Modesto. Okay. And he turned it down for a year because he had a lot of properties and stuff he had to straighten out before he transferred up there. So he came up a year later.
So you worked in the Sonora office for
till 77, December of 77.
Till 77. Okay. Okay.
And up there, all the speed limits were 65. We had no graveyard shift. I always volunteered to be on call. And some of the times I had the whole county by myself.
Is that right?
Clear up to Yosemite.
Okay. So it was a much different setup than it was down here then.
Yeah, a small town at that time.
Right.
We had 1 traffic light in the county.
Okay.
And they put a bypass in and put 28 traffic lights on it. Damn freeway. It's a half of a freeway, what it is, the bypass.
Mm-hmm.
So if they ever build the other half, that'd be the westbound lanes.
Okay.
So, yeah. If you lived on the west side or east side of town, you had to drive through Newhall or Sonora to get out of town to go to the valley.
So going back to Alan's question, you said you didn't realize that how it had affected you.
I did not realize. Apparently I wasn't. It was affecting me, but I wasn't myself.
How? In what ways do you think it was affecting you?
I was a jerk. And 2 months after I quit, I was sitting at my desk. In the meantime, I opened up a hobby shop at my house. And I felt like somebody took a corkscrew and pulled the plug out of my big toe. And I literally felt my body drain. And it took a lot of pressure off me. Did not know it. It built on you.
So just the stress of all those years just came out at once, huh?
Yeah.
Would you say, today they call it PTSD or post-traumatic
That's what
stress,
they call it now.
whatever.
Yeah.
Would you say that's how you were
It could have
affected?
been.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know, really.
Yeah.
First time I went to the CHP Academy, I got invited up to see the new museum. And in 2012, a highway patrol friend in Newhall, Sonora, got a hold of me. He was really interested in the Newhall story, so he's bringing stuff up all the time and pushing me to do this and do that. So went to the academy and saw the timeline in the museum. They even got that part of that wrong.
Is that right?
Had to straighten them out on it. And I ran into Officer Rick Matos. retired. He was on the job when Newhall happened. And at time he offered me to talk to people in Santa Barbara about 2015, 40 some years later. I said, Rick, it's too late. What are you going to complete now? You know, so that's where it stays. But first time I talked to him, with the CHP about this, I did a interview with a law enforcement tactics office at the academy with a Sergeant Bushy and Officer Nett, and that's the first time it's ever been. Anybody at CHP talked to me about it.
First time they really talk. Did you talk to any like therapists or anything on your own?
Nope.
Okay.
Weren't raised that way.
Okay.
Why do you think it took them so long to talk to you when they talked to the other officers before that?
I have no idea. Like I say, I was in a dark place in some stuff, and I'm not proud of it, but there's nothing vicious. It's just did some stupid stuff, so, and I'm going to leave it at that. So.
Well, it sounds like it's understandable why you'd be in such a dark place, you know?
Yeah, the CHP Academy Association came, they're doing a documentary on the Newhall Highway Patrol and the Newhall Incident, and they came to my house about 3 years ago now, and they're about 6 hours going through the books and videoing the situation. About a year ago, my oldest son was down from Washington, and we saw something on YouTube about Newhall, and he was at the CHP office, and the sergeant or somebody was telling me about the YouTube thing, so we got home and he got his computer out and he showed it to me on the YouTube. Then he started telling me about my wife then and his brother and him, what they did that night and the days afterwards, which they never talked to me about it.
Really?
I called up the CHP Association, got a hold of Blair Barton, and I told her what my son was telling me. Monday morning, they were there with a film crew to document what he said for the documentary.
Oh, really?
For the CHP. So.
Yeah, how did this affect your family?
You know, I really don't know. Because the kids never talked about it. My late wife never talked about it.
When you say that nobody talked about it, can I assume that it was just too painful to talk about, or it was just a custom not to talk about it?
Just didn't say anything. Like I say, same way I worked 7 years in the office up there. 5 of the officers in that office were my classmates.
Never really talked about it, huh?
Never talked about it.
Have you been back down here very much since?
Well, the first time I came back, I had to come to court, so they flew me down.
Okay.
One time I drove a patrol car down. Couldn't see the hood on the car coming through Bakersfield. And the CHP stopped me for driving too fast. In a patrol car.
That's funny. How often does that happen?
Yeah, and they took me to the office and chewed me out.
You were a dang rebel, weren't you?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like, what the hell I'm doing now? I know what I'm doing. I can see one bite dot.
So, have you been back to the spot? I mean, to this actual...
First time I came back here was when they did the rededication.
Okay.
And let's back up here. Back to when we were working graveyard. Monday night, April 6th, we went back to graveyard shift. Got off at 6:15 in the morning. I was talking to a supervisor, I can't remember, it was a lieutenant or a sergeant. I asked if we were going to hold a memorial service for the 4 officers here in Newhall. And that person told me, no, we're going to send the officers home. And I said to myself, no way. And then they told me if I could convince the families and get their permission to hold a memorial here, they would do it. So I waited till after 8 o'clock and I contacted the families, the wives, and talked to them about it. And every one of them gave me an okay. Yeah. And at that time, the kids I've met now were babies then. And I met one mother, I can't remember which mother it was. She was very apprehensive about the memorial. So that would be the 7th. 6th, 7th, yeah. 8th, the Thursday, we had a memorial service. All 4 officers at the chapel in Newhall. I sat with this mother and explained who these officers, people coming in to pay their respects. And some of them were undercover agents and they had beards. I mean, I played it and told her, yeah, that's he's a detective in this department and that stuff to make her feel at ease. Okay. Then they loaded up the 4 hearses and my wife drove my station wagon and we followed them to Merced that day. And I finally went to sleep in the back of the station wagon. I never sleep in a vehicle when it's moving. So we got to Merced. Roger and Walter were taken to funeral homes there. Pence and Allen went to the Bay Area. And that was the 8th. The 9th, we went and had the ceremonies at the cemeteries. They were buried on the 9th.
So why do you think that they didn't want to have a memorial to start?
It just didn't do those things in those days.
So it was just get back to business and the past is the past, yeah. And wow.
Roger's buried out in the town of Snelling. And after the ceremonies and stuff, then we went over and buried Walter on the west side of Merced in a cavalry cemetery. I went there this year and paid my respects and got pictures of it.
Okay.
I finally found it again. And when I was in the 4th grade, I lived in Merced.
All right, all right.
And I used to ride my bicycle up 99 to go to Merced to go to school on the freeway. Quite interesting. So in the meantime, I met the kids are, still small. The wives were still young. They were at the memorials. But I met Roger's grandfather. He was a constable in Snelling. And the wife and I, we've had dinner 2 or 3 times since. Okay. That time, over there, my late wife. Roger's buried about 500 feet from his grandfather's house.
Really?
In the cemetery. And it's a 40-minute drive from my house. So I've been down there more in this last year than I have in the past. Then after that, I can say, my friend in 2012, he was a sign collector. Okay. And I had a pickup load of Highway 49, 108, 120 highway signs for Tuolumne County. Okay. State signs with the bears on them.
All right.
Reflectors, old black and white signs. I bought them at a junkyard for $20.
Really?
And over the years, I made about $8,000 on it.
Wow.
He bought
good investment, huh? Good return.
My late wife, she was really pissed at me for buying them. What are you bringing that junk home for?
Tell me what lessons were learned from this? What good came out of this? This was a horrible tragedy, but it did lead to some good things afterwards.
And they changed the whole aspect of law enforcement, making stops, felony stops. Actually, it changed, I understand, it changed worldwide police departments' thinkings. And really changed.
In what way, do you think?
They are more aggressive, I think, for making felony stops, vehicle stops. They're more cautious. They have more take more time to do something. Like I say, in my time frame, I never had any classes on that through the academy afterwards. And they do more physical training now. When I went through the academy, I never ran. And the only baton activity I had physically was baton training. The rest of it was no climbing walls, barriers, running around obstacles, none of that.
So there's a much more emphasis on
Physical ability,
physical
mental
activity,
health.
and
Yeah. And at the time, my class, majority of the people in there were prior police officers. And I went from Sebastopol at $3.90 a month to the highway patrol for $5.90 a month. And that's one of the things when I burned stuff up in my files. Oh, I wanted to save that, my first paycheck. And I had a fire going.
So in essence, these officers did not die in vain.
No, it's a
because
hard
because they
lesson.
sacrificed their lives.
For the
Many lives
benefit.
were probably saved after that. Would you
Yeah,
say?
they probably have saved
Yeah.
many lives,
Yeah.
but it was a shame it had to happen that way.
Yes.
Because they would have been career officers. And I suspect they would have been captains and chiefs. So,
A terrible tragedy. One of the worst things that ever happened in our neck of the woods here, and to law enforcement in general. This has been a fascinating conversation. There's nothing better than hearing from the actual source
I
when you talk
appreciate
about history.
somebody asking me.
And we really thank you for your time here talking to us today.
It's a pleasure.
been an absolute honor, Mr. Holmes. Thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're actually going to do a little bit of a walk around this area because we are actually at the spot where the Newhall incident took place. We're in the courtyard of the hotel that's been built here recently, but we're going to actually walk outside and Erwin's going to point out some of the actual spots as best you can remember. And we'll learn more about the actual happenings that night of the Newhall incident back in 1970. I'm here with Erwin Holmes, who was here in April of 1970 during the Newhall incident. We're actually at the spot where it took place. It looks very different than what it looked back then. Kind of give us the layout here, Erwin, from what you remember.
Well, old San Fernando Road is down there where the freeway on and off ramps are now.
Okay.
This is Jay's Coffee Shop here
Okay.
and truck parking.
Okay. So the whole
All the way up to here,
all
I'd
the way
say.
up to here. Okay.
Had a large drainage ditch, open drainage ditch ran through here.
And we still have the drainage
It looks
roughly
like,
the same place,
I
right?
say it looked like it's probably in the same place.
Okay.
And old Highway 99 was closer.
Oh, okay. So what we call the old road was 99.
99 is divided expressway,
Okay.
and it's this way.
It was farther this way.
And we had center divider. And
So the 5 was there then?
that was 99.
That was 99, and that was
Old 99.
old 99. Okay, that's
Yeah.
why it's the old road. Okay.
You go north here, you'll see the original bridge and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
We'll see that when we walk to the back side of the motel.
All right. But you're saying our old road,
This was
old
all-
99 was actually closer.
Probably right in here.
Right in here. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That close.
Yep.
Okay. So when you said it's a very short drive onto the freeway, you were not kidding. It's right.
Yeah.
Just right around the corner.
Made
You
a
can
left
see
turn and you're on the freeway.
I see. Okay. Okay. So they moved the road back. So that would have been Jay's
Coffee Shop.
Coffee shop.
The Chevron, the standard gas station would be over
And
there.
this would be the gas station where we just were at the Hilton.
I think a little further that way.
A little further, okay.
Yeah.
So walk us through again the setup then, how it worked that night.
came off the freeway,
Mm-hmm.
made a right southbound. You make a right turn off the freeway on Old San Fernando Road or Henry Mayo Drive at that time. The minute you get off the off ramp, you do a right turn into Jay's,
A right turn into Jay's. Okay.
the
yes.
south back corner of Jay's,
Okay.
and that's where the people were that I first saw.
Okay. Okay.
And they pointed to me to go around, out and back around to the highway, to the north side of Jay's.
Up here.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So I backed out, came up here, parked next to the drainage ditch, and the gas station was over there.
Okay.
That's where everything took place. I can say, first time I came down there, I walked it back from there, and the gas station had to be over in here. I don't remember this retaining wall.
Okay.
So the Pontiac is back here, and they went through a wire fence guardrail into the river.
Okay. So
So
See-
the Pontiac was sitting back here,
Back
next
here?
to the guardrail,
next to the guardrail.
and the gas station had to be over there.
Okay. So the gas stations were basically the.
The other side of this set of buildings, almost part of the garden area of that set of buildings,
I see. Okay.
and
So.
it faced northwest.
Oh, I see. So you said the guys got in the Pontiac and they went this way. That's where you were saying you didn't understand why they didn't just turn left and get on the freeway, right?
All they had to do is turn here and get on
turn
get
here.
on, yeah, turn left, go on the old road, and we could have been gone.
I see what you're saying.
Because the old road came in here at an angle like it paralleled the river.
Okay. Okay. So the old road was much closer over this side.
All the way through, not the old road, San Fernando Road.
San Fernando. I keep saying the old road, but
Because
okay.
you see where the turn through is out here? There's
Where the what?
there's a break out here for the two-way, for the divided section,
Uh-huh.
where you can turn into this driveway and come to the backside.
Uh-huh.
That's where you came for San Fernando.
So San
Road.
Fernando Road came all the way to
Here, then they built this over the top of it.
okay. So the
So down there where Edison Curve is, they turned it more and brought it to the overpass, underpass.
okay. Okay, very interesting.
That didn't change.
Really?
No way they moved that bridge there for the river.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no way they moved that bridge down there for San Fernando, Henry Mayo Drive at the time.
Okay. So basically, they jumped in the car and they made it to here. And what stopped them? That
Freeway,
freeway stopped them. Okay.
and there's a guardrail. Then they went over, and one went east, one went west.
I see. Okay. And then Twining then made it over to
Either he got back up on the road, went over the road, or went underneath the bridge and got up on the westbound fence line.
I see. Okay. And then made it down to what's now Stevenson Ranch down there. Yeah.
I don't know about
But back down where across what used to be Newhall down there, yeah. To the house
Yeah, to the house at Pico
at Pico, right. Right.
and Lyons.
Yeah, okay. Which is still there. All right.
And like I say, none of that was there. It was all hills and valleys and
But you said
rough
that,
terrain at nighttime.
yeah. But Magic Mountain was there at the time?
I know we were going to it, but I can't remember when it was built.
Okay. I think it was late 60s, so
Yeah, because we had my wife was friends with a bookkeeper at Newhall Land and Farm,
okay.
so we had free passes.
Excellent.
So, and a lot of the highway patrolmen on their days off worked as EMTs at the
Oh, I see.
medical first aid at the.
So this
Park.
would have been where the car ended up, and that way would have been where the whole shooting and
back over
everything
that
took
way.
place. Okay.
Roughly,
Now we have the Hilton here.
the back
Yeah.
end of the Hilton,
Yeah.
and like I say, the gas station had to be. I say we're probably about within 400 feet of where everything took place.
400 feet of where we are, everything
Where the
took
car
place.
ended up, where the
I
incident
see.
took place.
Okay. Fascinating.
And that's why I say the guys say it happened down closer where recounter.
No, you think it was, but you were
Yeah.
here. You would know. Yeah.
Yeah, the car's here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's too far away.
Excellent. That's great to know. So it sounds like the actual gunmen and everything were pretty much like either in the courtyard or
No, they're in that parking lot on the
in
other
the parking lot.
the other
Okay,
side of
where
that
we
building.
were before.
No,
I'm-
up here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm confusing both of us. Up here, now where we had your car originally, you think it was closer?
It's up here.
Okay, let's go.
That's why I say I know where I'm assuming where they got the drainage grates now is probably on top of the drain, open
see.
drain was.
Right,
Because it already
right.
be dug for them.
right.
So working, like I say, working from here back
Working backwards.
moves everything up this way.
We'll go back over there and get a little bit
And I
better
just-
oriented.
I just think on the other side of that building there, and part of that building was where the gas station was, and that part of the parking lot was where the shooting took
Okay.
place.
Let's go back over there.
This way.
So the old road was all the way over here.
Yeah.
And
Then it went into that bridge.
okay,
Because you can tell that's new.
right.
So
So
the
San
gas sta-
Fernando came in right to here.
Yeah, tied into 99, so you go to Newhall
Ah.
before the freeway and stuff.
And it went under the bridge there.
No, went through the dirt. The river's where the bridge is.
Okay. So how did San Fernando go?
Went at an angle.
I see. Okay.
You go back to the curve on the other side, you can see where they took the road from here and did this to it to match the overpass down
Okay.
here. But it was basically the old maps. It was a angled road to the curve. And then it turned and went
Okay.
to Saugus.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure the gas station was right over there,
So the gas station was right over
right where that building
where
is.
this building is. Okay. And you
Probably
said
down a little bit.
farther that way, maybe a little. Okay. And you said it was at an angle, it's kind of facing.
It's a 45-degree angle
45
to the
degree angle.
intersection.
Okay, so it'd be turned a little bit. All right. So let's walk on down here and see where you remember the gas station islands to be.
Yeah, I would say old 99 ran through here.
Uh huh.
I'd say the gas station was about right in there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure then I stopped on that side there. Like I say, other people go clear down past the hotel sign and say,
But no.
if you look where the car ended up at,
Yeah.
and where the scene was, had to be right here,
So the shooter would have been
right in here.
right kind of in that that doorway area. You think?
I'd say the gas station was, front part of the gas station was right there.
Okay.
We're probably down here another 20, 30 feet.
Okay. So the shooter would have been there, shooters, and your car would have been where exactly?
Probably right in here.
Right in here. Okay. So so a lot of
Not
people
up there.
think it was farther down, but you've got it.
Well, you go where the car ended up at,
Yeah.
in that corner,
Yeah.
that bridge on the freeway hasn't changed.
Right. Right.
So it had to be at this angle.
See, this is why we do this, so we can get the real story from the people that were on the scene. You know.
And I'm pretty sure, and if you look at the bridge down there, the old 99, you can see where the old part was and where they tied this into.
Yeah.
And it's all
Yeah.
moved over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it should be
Yeah.
more of a straight shot
Okay.
to that bridge.
Okay. I can kind of see that because I know how that turns.
Yeah,
up
you got a
there.
little bridge down there,
You're right.
little hill, and I think they went that way and should have been straight this way.
So this was the old 99 here, and wow. So I guess we've got some
Changes.
changes, and
Yeah.
we this is why we do this, so we can get the true
Yeah, 'cause
story.
I'd say Pontiac would be straight over there,
Uh-huh.
and that's where it all started.
And your car would have been
Probably in here someplace.
right in here.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, this is great. It's good stuff. I hope someday that we can have a memorial here or some, a monument, something.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I say, this is all farmland.
Quite different today, huh?
Yeah. So I think this is all the old 99 through here.
Well, Erwin, I thank you so much for taking us through here and showing us where it all went down. I think we all had in our heads a different idea of where it actually happened. I personally thought it was closer to what was then what used to be Marie Callender's, but you're saying no, it took place way up here. So thank you
Jay's
for clearing
Coffee
that
Shop
up.
had a big parking lot
Okay.
all the way around the building.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful having you down here. We appreciate you coming all the way from Sonora to help us out. But this has just been one of those special moments for me. So we really thank you for that.
51 years in the making.
51 years. Amazing.
We hope this interview was informative and educational for you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Mr. Holmes' story.
For more information about the Newhall Incident or any other historic information about the Santa Clarita Valley, please visit scvhistory.com.
Special thanks again to Hilton Garden Inn, Valencia Six Flags for allowing us to film on their property, and to SCV TV for producing, filming, and editing this piece. I'm Dr. Alan Pollack.
And I'm E.J. Stevens. Thank you for watching.